Which one are we doing right now?
Well, we're going to do Xavier Dupont de Liggones. Now,
that was impressive.
I am a quarter French.
So am I. Well, I'm more than a quarter, but.
Did you have your DNA done?
No.
So then mom doesn't know.
Yeah.
Anyway,
She let Tom, so.
Oh.
Annie Joe.
Go
By
ahead.
the way, real quick, y'all have got to watch that show.
What channel was it on?
It was on a channel, 48 Hours, but it might be on Netflix, The Widower. There's part 1, 2, 3. Oh, well, Hulu or whatever, y'all. It's really good.
We have everything but Netflix.
See if it's on The Widower.
Okay.
Thomas, what did I say?
Pain.
So,
I have it.
Yeah.
I got it.
it's so good.
Did you turn your phone down?
Yeah.
Can you scoot over a little bit?
Me?
There you go. There you
Keep in
go.
mind I'm heavy. It's if I scoot over a little, it's like to knock her off the chair.
Yeah, but we've got like things here. You can't.
No, and I can't sit with this thing, the arms in my butt.
I wouldn't go that far.
Well,
Hold on. Let me make sure phones are off. Okay. Dupont.
Dupont. And I had to look up how to pronounce the city. So in order to have it correct, I will play the video. Okay.
okay, I'm ready.
But before we get started, 2 hydrogen atoms walked into a bar. The first says to the second, I think I've lost my electron. The second replies, are you sure? To which the first retorts, yes, I'm positive.
That's good. I get those stupid jokes every day from Stephen. Joke a day. She said cracking herself up.
That one was good. I heard of a joke. I may remember it in the middle, and y'all are just gonna have to bear with me.
Oh my Lord. You never know what you'll get when you have kids.
I'm waiting. Are you going to say your joke?
No, because I said I don't remember it, but if I do at any point in time, I'm just gonna blurt it out.
Oh, okay. And then my final one that I thought was hilarious is, what did the 30-degree angle say to the 90-degree angle?
What?
I don't know.
You think you're always right. No? Okay. All
I'm
right.
glad I don't have a gun.
Okay. So today we are going to the city of
Nantes.
No.
That's it?
No.
You were concerned you couldn't pronounce that?
Nantes.
I mean, you did his whole name beautifully.
Say his
no.
name. Say his name again.
No. But you got to go, no. I had caffeine this morning, by the way. So
I haven't
enjoy.
had anything.
So
No.
yes, no. France.
No.
Now, so I've never been to France. Have you guys been to France?
I have many times.
Lena has. You have not been to France. Susan has. She's been many times.
Susan's not here.
Oh, well.
Does she like it?
Yes. Now she
Well,
wouldn't.
it looks really pretty.
It's on
And
my
so
list.
this city, Nantes, is on the Atlantic. And so it's like a picturesque, seaside city, it looks like.
Ooh.
It's the 6th largest city in France with a population of 309,000 plus.
Where's it
Wow.
by?
Pretty big.
By Paris?
Paris.
I don't know, but
Paris?
and I've never heard of it. I mean, you would think that we'd hear, because like you hear of Nice, France, and Paris, and I'm not sure why we've
Right.
not heard of Nantes.
Paris.
Is it not with the T at the end?
Yes, yes.
Can you pronounce that again? I didn't get it.
Nantes.
Can you say it in a sentence, please?
And so the surrounding area around Nantes, it has like 973,000 people.
We can't do that.
This, unlike some of the past, true crimes we've done of the family annihilators, this is actually quite a large city. Yet it left its mark, and it's still on there to this day because they've not caught this guy. And we'll get into that because there's some controversy. Did he commit suicide? Did he disappear? And it's definitely a metropolitan area, and it's called or considered a gamma world city, meaning it's in the global economic network. So I'm not sure what that means. Except it must have some type of influence, and its economy and everything is more global versus, our economy, which should be America first. And
got to go America first and then do your shirt.
Right. So this spread all across France, and I saw this case on Unsolved Mysteries before I got rid of Netflix because of their wonderful show Cuties. Yes. And it reminded me a lot of John List. So I'm curious if you guys think the same thing as we go, because he was the first one we did where he annihilated his entire family, laid them out in a room, etc.
My List. That's what I remember.
And Dear John, which was even better.
But I came up with My List.
Right.
Which is a perfect title. Go
That's
ahead.
That's why I said My List, because you kept doing that repeatedly.
Just saying.
Okay. So this one actually was about 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago on April 11th. And Estelle Chapon, a neighbor.
You're going to do this the whole thing. I'm not going to be able to do this podcast because I noticed
that the family home. Now, are you ready? I mean, we got to get serious because people are going to be listening to this first part like I am never listening to that podcast again. But
and it is about an annihilator, so
right. But I gotta do this part. So Estelle, a neighbor, noticed that the family home of Count Xavier Dupont de Liggones and his wife Agnes and their 4 children were unusually quiet. So you can imagine 4 kids and they're teenagers. So always, coming and going. It was unusually quiet and the shutters were closed. And the reason that caught her attention is they never closed their shutters, even if they were on vacation. So she started getting a little bit worried. And on top of that, she did the ironing for Xavier, and then she did alterations for Agnes. So she was there a lot. And it's really a neat looking place. It's kind of like you would picture homes in a place like France where they're real tall, and narrow and have the stonework and stuff like that. So she said, quote, their house was usually very lively and busy. So she looked in the mailbox, which I was like, man, is still kind of nosy there. And she noticed a note instructing the mail person to stop delivering any mail there.
That's a weird move.
Yeah, no.
Estelle being nosy or the note?
Her being nosy and happen to come upon the note in the mailbox. Like that wouldn't be your first move, I wouldn't think. I wouldn't go to my neighbors immediately to the mailbox.
Right.
Unless I was seeing, like, to me, if it was piling up, then that would indicate they were out of town or dead. Mm-hmm. And if they were getting the mail, that would indicate they were there. So maybe that's why she did it.
Right.
Yeah. And I don't know if it was building up or not, but Estelle, she checked it. And it reminded me, John List, again, went to the post office to stop all mail.
Oh, yeah.
So you got to remember those details, And so after she looked in their mailbox, she then waited for 2 days. Nothing changed. No activity, no kids, no nothing. So she called the police. And this one's actually extremely frustrating because the way the police responded basically guaranteed that he could get away. So that was the 11th. On the 13th, the police arrived and they, like Estelle, found the doors locked, the shutters closed. They called a locksmith, came, opened the door, and they found everything in the home was in place. So some of the bedrooms, the sheets were removed, some of the closets were opened. But, it's like, well, if they're going out of town, maybe they just stripped all the beds for laundry and, left their closets open. But nothing suspicious.
Time out. So we've been watching a lot of these, and that's one of the biggest clues. If sheets and comforters are gone, they didn't go out of town.
Right. I mean, I've never stripped my bed before I went out of town, but
even if you did, they wouldn't be gone.
Exactly. And then to the cops, though, it looked like they had either moved, which I thought was interesting, or they had gone on an extended trip. And that's what Xavier wanted them to think. And, they presume innocent and all that stuff, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I don't think so. I think he definitely shot his entire family. So there wasn't anything that seemed like foul play, no blood, no nothing. So they didn't investigate. They're just like, hey, lady, probably the nosy neighbor going through people's mail. It's like they're just out of town, or maybe they moved and there's nothing here. So they left. And the strange thing, though, was, well, if they moved, then why was one of their cars there? So all of their cars, but one was there, and it was the C5. So she's like, no, the entire family can't be in that car, plus their dogs. Where are their dogs?
The dogs were gone too.
Way that they would fit in that little C5.
Oh, I didn't know they had dogs.
Yeah.
I wonder if anyone heard any kind of barking or anything.
So then the next day, friends and relatives started getting letters. And they got letters from Xavier and Agnes. And in the letters, they said that they were infiltrating an international drug ring.
And what was his profession?
I don't know. It may be in here.
Thing.
But I'm not sure.
Nope.
So, quote, this will be hard. You won't see us for a while, as we're going to change identity, be under protection, and won't be reachable at all. So it's really bizarre. And that's what I don't get. Okay, so if you're trying to get away or not not cause suspicion, why would you say you're infiltrating an international drug ring? You know what I mean? Like, it might be like, hey, we finally got our visas to go to America. We're out of here, something like that, because they've been trying to get to America. But why would you say infiltrating an international drug ring? It's stupid. So for criminals, it's like they go to the most extravagant or extreme. And I think it's like an ego thing.
And they think people believe them.
Right. Right.
Well, and it's so far-fetched. I mean, how in the world would they even check some of these things?
Well, and maybe that's what the purpose is so that they wouldn't even know where to begin. And surprisingly, some actually believed them. Yeah, it's crazy. So some were confused, but some believed the crazy story because they didn't think that either one of them would lie. They were just good people. And so they didn't think that they would. Now, on top of that, Xavier is a count. So he comes from a very prestigious family. They have musketeers in their family line. They've got a castle in the middle of France, a signet ring that has like the family's motto and coat of arms. And so all of these things were very important to Xavier. And so they probably thought, he's a count. I could see that happening, blah, 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 blah. But the other side of the family, Agnes's family, they were skeptical and they didn't believe that. And that's why it's so important, to stay in touch with your loved ones, to know your loved ones, what would be normal and what wouldn't be normal, because her family would not stop until something happened. And kind of like Jeffrey McDonald's father-in-law. I mean, he kept going. And so sure enough, they're like, no, this isn't right. So they sent a letter to non-DA. And then on April 15th, the police returned to the house to investigate things more thoroughly. This time, they noticed that photos were missing from the frames. Again, John List did the same thing, but nothing was suspicious. And I'm like, come on, it was so frustrating watching it because you don't disappear and you don't take family pictures out.
Unless, let's say it was like here you have the protection situation And
Witness
so I
protection.
could see you taking those pictures to hide your identity or
But you'd take the frames.
keep those with you.
Why would you leave the frames there?
Hey, real quick, when you were talking about keep in touch with your loved ones and whatnot, we had talked about this week. You brought up a good point of having code words with people.
Yes.
And we did this, when the kids were younger. And it's, I would just say that it's important to have a code word with family, friends, etc., so that they know something's wrong.
We'll need one.
Yeah. So I was telling Elena that the realtor I work with, especially after I watched, I don't know why I'm smiling, but I watched a true crime show where a realtor was killed in a house. Mm-hmm. And I think it was over in Texas. And that's happened more than people realize.
Yeah, it was in Plano. I watched that a couple of weeks ago. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I told her, I said, what's your plan? What do you, what's going on here? Like if you get anything happens, because if she ever had like a feeling like maybe I don't know these people, it's a male without a wife, which you can't even trust that. I mean, there's male female killers. But anyway, she said, if I text you or call you and say, I need the red file, then you need to call the police and then call my husband. I'm like, all right. We got it, So, having that code word, I think is important because, if you're in that setting and you feel uncomfortable and you're like, hey, I need something out of a file for this house. Let me call my assistant real quick. I need the red file. They're not going to suspect that.
Right.
And so, I think code words are really important. And, to know them and to not be like, what red file, like you need to make sure you understand what's happening.
Right. So we had one, with the kids, and it was during the time period Jay was just being a stinker. And she was with mom and she called me and she used it. And I said, Jade, you cannot use it with your family. That is not the point of the code word. And she's like, code word. She just kept repeating it.
She wanted to come home.
She's being a stinker. Like, you cannot use that for your mama, really. Typical Jade fashion. Do you remember that?
No.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So the Agnes's family continued to pressure the authorities, resulting in 6 more visits. So the initial concern was on the 11th. They returned the 15th, the 18th, the 20th, the 21st. And on the 21st, the DA finally conducted a press conference at the courthouse stating that the family's disappearance was unusual. They were going to investigate it. While he was doing the press conference, which I'm not sure why you would do a press conference, but whatevs. So while he's doing the press conference, he gets a phone call. So it's live. So he halts the press conference, he answers the phone, and police notified him that they had found several large plastic trash bags bound with tape under the terrace. And inside the bags, they discovered the bodies of Agnes, Arthur, Benoit, and Anne, along with the 2 dogs.
And it took them 6 visits.
Mm-hmm.
Under the terrace.
They obviously didn't search.
Right.
The terrace outside.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I've got pictures. I meant to open those. Yeah. So the bedding obviously is, an indicator, like you said. And so all the bodies were wrapped up in duvets and sheets.
You'd think there'd be an odor though after 6 days or 6 different times.
Well, and I'm not sure how they found the bodies. Like, is it because it smelled? Did they have cadaver dogs, or did they notice disturbed dirt? But let me show you a couple pictures of the crime scene. So, and here's what's weird before I share the screen. So they're wrapped in the blankets and duvets, but each one of them had a small religious icon placed next to their body. And they found Thomas's body, who is the heir to the title, in a separate grave. But one body was conspicuously missing, and that was Xavier's body. So obviously he's the prime suspect right off the bat.
Right.
Okay, so let me share my screen and I'll show you the, so this is a picture of them finding the bodies. And obviously you have, the,
So they were kind of buried.
It's
yeah,
outside of their house.
here's they call this a terrace, but it looks like they were underneath there. So that what's amazing to me is how small of a space that is. So like, I'm curious, was he digging their graves for a long time and they didn't know? Or did he spend all that time digging underneath there right after he killed them? It just seems like such a small area.
If it's interesting, they're outside the house, outside, little part. No dirt would be disturbed and they didn't see it.
Mm-mm. And it looks like it goes all the way across too. So again, it just seems like a lot of effort, to dig underneath there. Now this is the picture of their house. And so see how the shutters are closed?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't do that, the neighbor said. And then this is them carrying out the bodies once they found them. And of course, I'll show you the family and stuff later. But it just, again, that just, digging in that area, it just seems like a lot of hard work. Anyway, but
And
I mean,
I would sort of notice he was digging. I mean, wonder why they.
But John List went the extra mile as well.
yeah, but not digging underneath an area that small. That's just, to me, digging is hard enough, but digging in an area where you're going to have to be on your belly. There's no other way.
Now, were they dug into were they found in the ground or just laying on top?
No, they were found,
shallow grave.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, actually, you know what? No, I think there was some digging because that came up later because he had a bad back. So a lot of people keep saying there's no way he would eliminate his family. But you know what? Let's just discuss that for a second. I've not heard of a single crime. And if there is one out there, I would love to hear about it. But I've not heard of a single crime where the entire family but one is dead and it's not that family member.
Right.
Unless the family member was maybe away at college or, out with friends. But typically, when the entire family's gone, it's usually a family annihilation. And so, like, to me, of course, him being the only one not dead, it's probably going to be him. But a lot of people are like, no, there's no way because of his back injury. So we'll get to that in a little bit. I just think it's ironic that they're having the press conference after having to, 6 times, hey, something's wrong here. And then bam, they discover the bodies.
What month was this again?
April.
Okay.
And it really impacted the city quite a bit. You'll see people went by the house a lot and they would leave like flowers and their pictures. I mean, people would cry, it was like a really, really big deal. And the kids, they were well liked. They had a lot of friends. And so it was a big deal.
Were the funerals together?
Huh?
Were the funerals together?
I don't know.
They
Probably.
Together. Yeah. They keep them together.
So the autopsy, it revealed that the 4 children had been drugged with sleeping pills. So they were drugged first, and then Agnes, she didn't have any medication in her system, but she had sleep apnea. And if you've ever heard one of those sleep apnea machines, they are incredibly loud.
Well, they had to keep the kids in
Incapacitated?
Yeah, because they were.
Yeah. And so they could tell by the machine that it stopped in the middle of the night at approximately 3 a.m. on the morning of April 3rd or April 4th. They're not sure because, it's going into April 4th. So to me, that 3 a.m. would be the 4th. But
and
they
he
believe,
didn't call anyone until the 11th.
right. So they're probably killed the third or the fourth. And then the neighbor finally was like, hey, something's going on the 11th, but it wasn't until the 21st that the police finally took this case seriously. And by that time he had a good 17 days.
Maybe there wasn't an odor because they were buried. Because you
Maybe.
would smell something after that month.
Mom's on the odor.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, they say inspectors or detectives, whatever they're called, various countries, that there's a distinct odor, and apparently it happens quickly.
It does. Yeah, it's pretty fast. So they believe that she was killed first, and each victim was killed by 2 bullets from a 22 caliber long rifle. No neighbors heard any gunshots. And when they looked over the crime scene, they did not find, and this is crazy, a single trace of blood.
Oh.
Yeah. And they didn't. Huh?
Because the bedding was gone.
Well, and they had sleeping pills, and they were shot.
Now, how can you not hear a rifle?
Well, no.
Well, at 22, probably, in the middle of the night, I could see that, if you're sleeping heavily. But the fact that there's no blowback, like the 22, I mean, it is a small caliber, but still you think there'd be something. So he either cleaned the crime scene very, very well. Excuse me.
Like Lana said, a pillow or something on top.
Right. Something, because
the bedding was gone. So
exactly. So we know that, but you would think, even like blood would get into the mattress, but I guess not. And then there was also no fingerprints or DNA from anyone at all.
Oh.
So he cleaned it.
He cleaned it really good. In fact, I mean, if he's still alive, he could probably start a house cleaning business and do very well.
He cleaned it so good. Crazy.
Okay. Now, for obvious reasons, innocent until proven guilty, but there's a lot of circumstantial evidence that points to him as a perpetrator. So I wanted to kind of go into exactly who is this guy and who was his family. So Xavier and Agnes, they met in the early 1980s. He was 20, she was 17, and they loved each other very, very much. But he had like a wanderlust. He wanted to kind of see the world a little bit, have some adventure, travel around. So he broke up with her and took off. To me, I'd be like, wow, I mean, I don't know if it was a mutual decision, but yeah, they broke up, and he returned a year later, and Agnes was pregnant.
Oh.
So it obviously wasn't him.
Did she come from money like he did?
I don't think so. And then, in spite of his traditional and conservative background, he married her and adopted the child and gave that child his name. So this one is Arthur. Okay, so he is the oldest, but he is not his biological child. But the traditional conservative background, very similar again to John List. And then, and by the way, in France at that time, that was unheard of, that a man, especially a count, would marry this woman and take that child as his own.
Right.
So then over the years, they grew their family. They had another son, Thomas. So even though he was the second son, he was the one that was the official heir of the title. It would not have gone to Arthur because of, him not being his biological. Then they had Anne and Benoit, and they seemed picture perfect. Agnes worked at a Catholic school, and she was very personable. People liked her. Arthur was 20 years old, and he was pursuing a degree at a private Catholic college. And he also seemed to be the jokester. So let me pull up their pictures. So this is a family. So the one laying across the kids, that's Arthur. And then that's Thomas, and then Anne, and then Benoit.
Yeah.
This is Xavier and Agnes and their daughter.
Like the mother.
Very much.
Here's another picture of them.
Arthur's.
So they you can tell that Arthur's definitely the jokester. I mean, that's pretty pretty evident.
They seem genuinely happy too.
And then this is the dad with the daughter. I think she's absolutely gorgeous.
We have another one of those arm things.
Right. Like Ted Bundy, the Ted Bundy pose. And then this is all of them together. So this probably is the most recent picture of all of them. I'm not sure where the parents are looking off to, but again, you see Arthur, he's got that huge smile on his face. I just think Anne is so pretty, goodness. And, but anyway, so that's the family. And Thomas, so the official heir, he was 18. He was very shy. He was really sweet, but he was obsessed with music. And he was attending college as well. Anne was 16, the only girl, and she was actually a model for mail order catalogs. And she was the most studious of the 4 children. And she also attended a Catholic school. And then Benoit was the youngest. He was 13, and he attended the same school as Anne. And he also loved music, especially the drums. So I'm sure it was a loud house. But when they started digging, like most traditional family annihilators, where it's either another woman or the marriage looks like it's ending, or there's financial problems, or all of the above, things weren't looking very good for Xavier. So outwardly, he appeared like a successful businessman, nobility, heir to a title after his father passes away, but he was in deep financial trouble. So what happened was in the early 2000s, they had tried to unsuccessfully to move to Florida, and they spent nearly all of their money to try to get to America, and they weren't able to. So they spent all that money. They weren't allowed into the country. I'm not sure why, but that right there started this downward spiral of failure. And so then bailiffs, I guess that's what debt collectors are called there, were on his back for debt. His companies weren't ever really successful. And then also they were about to lose the house, and the money they were living on was from an inheritance for Agnes. So I guess she did come from some money, and it was almost gone. At the same time, things were deteriorating for Agnes and Xavier as well. In fact, there's a police report from 2005 where Agnes called them because Xavier assaulted Arthur. And so
that's the oldest one.
That's the oldest one that's not his blood.
Yeah, I mean, you have father-son issues sometimes, especially when they're teenagers.
Yeah.
But you still see the common denominator of finances and failure.
And it's almost like the loss of control over the family too. Because to me, what epitomizes a family annihilator is loss of control, and then loss of face. They're going to look like failures. Their businesses, their marriage, everything disintegrates, and it's just too much for the ego. It's too much for them to take. So it's like they get this giant eraser and want to erase their entire past.
You know anything about his parents? How he grew up?
We'll get into that in a second. I don't know much about his mom. But his dad, there's a little bit about him. It was hard to find much on this case. So Agnes had also...
How did you come across this one?
Unsolved Mysteries.
Okay.
Like I stated at the beginning.
I just remembered. Thank you for that, Sherry. As soon as you said Unsolved Mysteries.
And as soon as you said that, I knew she would say, I said that already.
Sorry, my apologies.
Thank you.
So she also had talked to others, like at work and some friends, that Xavier was too judgmental, too quick to argue, too rigid, too military. There's no more tenderness between us, no more attention, no softness, no sex. When I ask him if he's happy, his response is the same. Get this. Yes, I am, but if we could all die tomorrow, that would be better.
No.
That's
a flag.
Yeah, it's a big flag.
That's a huge flag. That's like a flag that takes up the entire house, just waving it around. Like, to me, I've never heard anyone say, oh yeah, I'm happy, but if we could all die tomorrow, I'd be better.
But again, like the last podcast, if it's out of your mind of any kind of possibility that someone would do that anyway, so you don't think anything about it.
See, that's why I think true crime podcasts are beneficial, because if you listen to them, then you start recognizing that's not something that's normal.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
True.
So that's all a quote. And so it appears that almost like that whole like traditional thing where the kids maybe are not holding the same traditional values as the dad, and they're maybe doing things that he doesn't approve of. And it's like this tightening down of control, but also anger, the police report. It just almost seems like there's a pattern that happens with these family annihilators.